I always felt I could get performances out of people who just agreed to be on camera. This was my own anti-acting kind of school of, I'm going to get these people to be interesting, even though they're not actors, which kind of makes it, it's a semi-professional undertaking, but I think the rewards are greater than, because it's people who don't know, that they should just say their line and hit their mark. They were always approached as an active participant in their character. We never have any conversations about who they were, where they were going, what their motivations. These typical actor-type conversations were completely off the table here. It was just like, what are you doing at this moment? Here are some ideas. In a way, like every Godard film, none of his characters have a past. There's no real history. They're kind of who they are at that moment, and they're often just kind of a mouthpiece for the greater thing, the film, but embodied by these kind of strong individuals. So we would routinely meet the night before or maybe a few days before and rehearse the upcoming scene and get it pretty close to what it would be. This seems like it's totally spontaneous, but it's actually, I kind of always knew what was coming. There'd be an occasional little flourish that I didn't expect, but for the most part, it was scripted. We knew what was coming. Yeah, looking back, this is one scene. I don't think I knew enough to know that this was almost impossible to do. You would never expect to get a consistent performance or anything about, in one take. It's kind of impractical, but that's how I approached the entire movie. I didn't want to intercut. It would have been tough to edit. Continuity, it's kind of one of the weaknesses of a budget at this level. You don't really have that kind of control, and so I kind of designed everything to be around kind of a single take as much as possible. Obviously, there's sometimes you have to cut, but this wasn't one of them. So much of this felt like real seat of the pants. Here we are on the streets, no permits, it's 105 degrees, we don't have money or any time. You can't really control anything. We'd come in and, do the best we could. But in a shot like this, we're laying dolly track on a public street without a permit. Fortunately, we were still a fairly small production. But, you've got a van, you've got a bunch of track. And, no cop ever pulled over and said, let me see your permit. What are you doing? We would often lie if we got too much inquiry and just say, oh, we're doing a student film or a mayonnaise commercial, or we just come up with various excuses, but this was under the radar all the way. I think Slacker is definitely in the tradition of the no-budget backyard film, someone's first film or early film. Where I was so lucky was that it didn't take me 3 years to do it. Actually, it took a few years for the film to ever be seen, but it was actually shot over the majority of it. Almost all of it was shot over a 2-month period, July and August of '89. I showed it as a work in progress at the IFP market in October. I'd completely run out of money at that point, had no money, was totally stretched. The typical low-budget story, sell everything, steal everything, you got nothing left, credit cards, every possible source of money was gone. And WDR, a German television company, saw it as a work in progress and was interested in it. And based on them agreeing to buy it, I think for $35,000 or something is what I would get when they licensed it. When it was finished, I took their letter of intent or whatever, and I was able to get a loan to finish the movie. So I had a watchable print. And I didn't have their money, but I just had the hope of getting their money. It seemed like it was going to happen, and it did eventually. But I was able to secure a loan. I think my parents co-signed for me. I was able to get a watchable print. We premiered it in Berlin in the market there. We didn't get in the festival. No one really wanted us when we finished the film. It was really all this effort, but it had gone pretty quickly. Shooting the first frame in July and having a watchable print in February, that's pretty quick. We had a screening. Our first screening ever was in Dallas, and we got these kind of shitty reviews in the Dallas papers, but the audience liked it. I was kind of relieved, but my first review ever, the playwright who writes his play, get your first review. I remember waking up in a Dallas hotel and reading these 2 reviews and just saying, I just want to get out of this town. I didn't want to watch the film tonight with an audience. I was feeling so kind of bummed out. It was kind of like, would make a good short film, but, just nothing to it, a bunch of nobody. It was just, they so weren't into the spirit of the movie. And at that point, you're so insecure. You don't know. You think, am I just in my own universe and none of this will mean anything to anyone, and I'm just one of those people destined to be like a total underground person, which is, that was a distinct possibility. I guess I had some hope. I mean, Slacker, for all its alienating aspects, structurally, story, and it defies a lot of expectations, it still is a film that is humorous and wants to be liked, I would say, and on some level. It wants to meet an audience somewhere along the way, a like-minded audience. I think films, in general, you want to be entertaining, and I was very, very conscious of that in the movie. So I was kind of hoping we would, some people would appreciate it. But that didn't really happen until Seattle. The people who run that festival, I got a call, an enthusiastic call, saying, from the head of the festival, Daryl McDonald, said, I knew something was up when two of my programmers handed me this video, and Nick Roman and John Prey. When they handed me this video and said, if I don't take this film, they'll resign, And here, we take that for granted now, but it's like, it's those kind of special moments that start, that kind of are your angel. They're your angels who kind of move you along in this world. And because the buzz was so strong from the people running that festival, here was a film from nowhere by nobody. Austin is not on the film map at this point. I remember standing outside the theater that day, June of 90, and there was a line wrapped around the block. There was a lot of anticipation for the movie, and everyone in line looked like they stepped out of the movie. They were dressed the same way as the characters in the movie. It was Seattle at that very moment in history, and it was like, wow, that's our audience. The film had found its audience. The Slacker had connected, and it got a wonderful response. And I did like my first lengthy Q&A I was nervous about, but I was like, oh, this is how you do it. But it was a wonderful experience. We went back, did a few European festivals after that, and we opened the film ourselves here in Austin, and without thinking we'd never really get traditional theatrical distribution. So we played it ourselves at the Dobie.
Good behavior.
It's so funny, the life a film has. It has its, you make it, and then it has its theatrical life, or its attempted theatrical life, and then it has its long time life. So it was kind of fun to see Slacker in all its different incarnations and phases. I mean, I was never confident that we would get traditional theatrical distribution or anything. I was just hoping to maybe get a few, like a European TV sale, which we had gotten in Germany, or just anything, who knows. But I'd sent a tape of it to John Pearson, the indie film guru who had been instrumental in the selling of films like Stranger Than Paradise and Roger and Me, and it helped Spike Lee quite a bit early on. And, he was just one of those guys who kind of had, a foot on the filmmaker's world, and someone distributors listened to and could represent films, and kind of an instrumental guy. And when I sent him this tape, I called him up, and I was lucky. He had just actually read about some response from Seattle. And so I'd already differentiated myself in the film from what was, the hundreds of other tapes he might have received. It's like, oh yeah, I just read something about that film. And then we just talked in general. And then the next time I heard from him, he hadn't seen the film at that point. The next time I heard from him, I got just a message. Rick, it's John Pearson, call me, something's happening. And I was like, what was that? What is that on the... So I called him back, and he had slipped a tape of it to Michael Barker at Orion Classics, and who quickly showed it to his two cohorts, Tom Bernard, Marcy Bloom. And I think Tom Bernard had shown it to his brother. They just shown it to some people on video, or showed it in a class he was not teaching, but like guest lecturing in, or whatever, some summer workshop kind of thing. He showed it, and the class really liked it, young people. So they kind of thought they were onto something. And they made an offer for the film. It was unbelievable. I just couldn't believe it. Not a big offer. I mean, it seemed huge at the time. $100,000 was shit, that's some serious money. But I really started adding up what I owed in finishing funds and what I had said I was going to pay everybody in the cast and crew and just all the costs, the insurance and all that, it wasn't quite enough to pay for everything, but it certainly was a big chunk. And I remember like one of the happiest days of my life was when I got some of that money. You don't get it all at once, of course. There's all these delivery requirements. It takes the next 6 months or a year. It was almost a year from the time they got interested in the film to the time they released it. So there went a year of my life. I would work up with actors, but within a very solid structure, there was all kinds of looseness within that structure for discovery. And I found that to be a really rewarding way to work. Have some really strong ideas that guide the ship, but then within the details have a certain looseness and collaboration. And that grows out of the economics of the movie. When you're not paying anyone, it becomes our project. It's our movie. I had several friends I thought would be instrumental in the film who didn't work on it at all. I was kind of surprised. I don't think they wanted to work on my film. They thought it should be their film. And the people who did end up working on it, my closest collaborators, found something in it that, found their place in it, that there was something in it for them. Clark, who was kind of one of our key crew people, he was kind of AC, grip, he did everything. It was insane to have him be an actor in all these scenes. So we sort of struggled on all these scenes to replace him in the crew. It's not like he's Mr. Actor or anything. He was just, the good thing about it is where they are and they'll show up to work. I never considered anyone like a worker. We were all artists expressing ourselves. Every cast member, every crew member. It was just like an art project. It wasn't like Rick's film, That wasn't the vibe. I didn't want it to be the vibe. But I do also remember saying, I can't wait to pay people so I can fire some people. You're supposed to be there early for sunrise and you show up late and we miss it just, because you're not getting paid. People have this kind of loose come and go attitude. Actors too. It's like, we're set for rehearsal. It's like, my girlfriend's in town. I was going to hang out with her Sunday. It's like, oh, okay. So see where your priorities are. It's hard you can only be so pushy when you're not paying people. So I remember really craving actually having a budget. So it would be a little more professional. I was ready for that, to just jump up to that next level of professionalism. So, you know what? I'm paying you to do this, But not be any less collaborative, just be a little more professional. That was kind of my formula I was reaching for. My only dissolve in the whole movie. I felt like I cheated there, but we were going from afternoon to night, so I felt kind of bad about that. I don't know why. I remember technically thinking every cut, everything was like a big moral dilemma. I just wanted it to be one shot. I wanted the whole movie to not ever cut, just be one long take. And every edit was like a big deal, like exactly where it would be cut and how it would all place together. The big experiment with Slacker was seeing how the story would go together in a viewer's mind. I mean, what makes no sense on paper. You could never have shown the schematic I had or the script or whatever you want to call it, and it would never on paper look like a film that would work at all. But I had some instinct that this would actually work. I saw this as a film of parallel films. Like, if you think of every person in this movie or every little coupling of people, like that's its own movie. I just saw us jumping from movie to movie in these interactions. There's all these movies going on, the movie of all of our lives, and you're checking into that person's movie for a few minutes, and then you're jumping over to another story. And I thought, well, it doesn't make any sense on paper that people could kind of relate to that now, due to technology. We watch things and we put it all together. We amalgamate all these things. If you flip through the TV station in the evening, you're just putting shit together. You might not even watch a whole program, but you're just getting the bits and pieces. And you're creating a structure and you're finding themes and connections. So I was really interested in the effect of how it might work. To a viewer, it was sort of like a theoretical thing, but I was strangely confident that it would make sense. I thought this connection of the interaction is very similar to the way you drift through your own life. You drive to an appointment, you have that appointment, you go to somewhere else, you run into someone you haven't seen in a while, you talk. Within that talk, you digress and talk about something else.